May the 4th be with you. Yo, welcome to a brand new episode of Broken Takes. I'm your host, Ali, and we got a good one for you guys tonight. Today, it's May the 4th be with you by the time you guys are reading this. That's right, Star Wars, baby. Check out Disney Plus, check out all your Star Wars stuff. Shout out to all my Star Wars fans out there. But we got a good show for you tonight. I have some special guests in the back. I'm going to go ahead and bring them up. We got Shake Money, who's missing right now. And then we got Color. What's up, Color? How's it going, buddy? Man? Not much, man. How's everything?
Oh, fairly good.
Yeah, no problem.
Weather's been terrible, but it's getting better.
So, Color, I'm gonna do the rundown, but then we got a special guest tonight, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be good stuff. Yeah, that's what we have. So let's do the rundown real quick, you and I. Check out El Capitan show, check out Color show, check out my shows, check out all the different shows we have here around the Fins tailgate. You never know what to expect. You got Shake Money, Lewis, DTA, the whole 10 yards. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Use Cash App and Venmo if you'd like to donate. We also accept super chats and stickers. Also check out our memberships. We got we have Familia, MVP, Amigo. We have different levels. Definitely check that out. There's some cool content, cool emojis that you can get. And along with it, check out the links below. You can check out our affiliates.
New seasons, new gear. Show the world what it means to be a fan in 100% authentic gear. Fanatics, officially licensed everything.
That's right, officially licensed everything, Color. Check out Fanatics. Use the link below. I buy all my jerseys from them. I buy a lot of stuff from them. I buy stuff for tailgating, all my fan gear. Check out Fanatics. We definitely appreciate it. In addition to that, shout out to some of our other sponsors that we have around here. We got Doobie Energy Drinks. That's right, Doobie Energy Drinks has some cool supplements that have vitamins and minerals in them that focuses on benefiting your brain in some way. Helps with concentration. You don't get the crashing or jittering that you do and it doesn't have all that sugar and create bad stuff for you like you see in some of the other energy drinks out there. So shout out to Doobie Energy Drinks. In addition, while you're down there, also check out Backroom Collection. They got some really cool stuff there. They got some cool artwork and canvases that you can put in an office, your man cave, or bedroom, whatever you want. They got some really cool stuff, not just Dolphin stuff. They have other stuff as well. So definitely shout out to all of our different affiliates. With Backroom Collection, don't forget to use code TFTG at checkout. Save 10% off. So definitely check them out while they're at it. Now I can bring up Shake Money. I had introduced you before, but it was an empty chair. I was like, this is the ghost of Shake Money.
Yes, it is.
What's up?
I was trying to find my Star Wars shirt, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, well. It's all good. It's all good. May the 4th be with you, though.
May the 4th be with you.
But let's not hold back. Let's introduce our special guest for tonight. I want to give him some good intro music, something I can put on here. Let me find something good. Maybe it's something like this. Yeah, this will be good. Who is it? You know who it is, Shake?
Yeah, of course.
It's the man, the myth, the
The
legend.
legend.
Kahari P. What's up,
Oh.
Kahari? How's everything?
What's up? Fins up, everyone.
Fins
Oh
up,
my
man.
God, Kahari P. How you doing, man?
Yeah,
Live in the
camera.
flesh.
Yeah, that's right. I love that hat, Kahari. I want to get that hat. I love that hat.
That's fire. I love the
Actually,
shirt, actually.
Miami Dolphins shop.
Definitely.
About
Or
2 years
Fanatics.
old.
I'm sure Fanatics says it too. So check out.
By the way, I love the shirt.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely love the shirt too.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
man. Hey,
So,
getting ready for summertime, man. You know.
oh yeah.
So what's up, fellas? What's going on?
Yeah, man. So we just came off the weekend of the NFL draft. We had shockers, we had tear jerkers, we had it's craziness, trades galore. There's a lot to talk about. So let's start off from the top. The Miami Dolphins. We'll talk about the Dolphins first. Actually, let's talk about the first round first. Let's talk about that. Did it play out? Did it play out how you thought? Like, did you were you surprised by any picks? Was there a huge shocker to you in any of the picks? We'll start with Kahari.
Man, let me just tell you, man, I've been up and down with this draft since it happened, man. Initially, I was upset, man. I was waiting for the Dolphins to make some moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted them to address what I saw as some glaring needs on this team if we're to take the organization seriously about, going for the championship this year. I thought for sure we had to do something about that tight end room and that we had to shore up the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we were poised to do it. I mean, we signed all of our backs back, right? It looked that way. And so I think I was initially shocked when we drafted a cornerback, with the second round draft pick, and then added a running back with the third. So, initially, like I said, man, I was calling for Greer's head initially, but then I went back and read the scouting reports about Smith, and he appears to be a fairly decent prospect at the position. And then Ramsey and Howard are older themselves, so it makes sense if we're planning for the future. But again, I thought, the mission was win now, And then as far as the back A-chain goes, I've never been a fan of smaller backs, right? But in today's NFL, I can definitely see the argument, especially with the way McDaniels coaches the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
With his emphasis on speed and getting out wide.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see this guy becoming like a Dave Meggett type. I don't know if our audience is going to be able to go that far back. But just a good gadget back, a Darren Sproles type who can pop the big run or take a screen pass all the way. So if we can mix them, in that way, then we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. What did you think, Shake? Was there anything crazy about the first round or our draft picks that you thought? Like, what did you think?
Well, when remember I told you one of my skeptic takes was that we were going to draft the room that we were the heaviest in, which was defensive backs with the first round. It happened with Charles. It happened with Charles Harris. It happened with Noah Ignagini. So this isn't the out of the norm pick that the Dolphins do with their first pick. You know what I mean? Last year, we got linebacker, but at the same time, we got Cedric Wilson. We had Tyreek Hill. We had all these wide receivers, and what do? We get Izukama. So I don't know. We didn't address the areas of needs, but we got where our riches were plenty, in my opinion.
Very interesting. What do you think, Color?
A wide receiver that is yet to see the field, might I add. And
same with the linebacker.
Yep, and same with the Cameron Good. Yep, and to Kari's point, you see a guy like Pacheco. I mean, over in Kansas City, and that's kind of what I think that a guy like A-Chain brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost seems like, again, like, that's what we're looking for: small, speedy players to be able to get the ball out quick. We're going to run a lot of the same stuff like that, and that may help. as far as the corner goes, I think that's a depth or a future draft because, or a future prospect because, we did see a lot of injuries at that position last year and found ourselves lacking, throughout the season. So, whether that was the right guy to choose or not, you could argue, but I'm kind of like Kahari. I didn't verbalize it at first, but I wasn't feeling it at first, but I kind of figure, well, what else could we have really done? We kind of maximized what we really could do.
Yeah.
And, and I don't believe that every offensive lineman we bring in here is going to be bad. I don't, at some point that trend's got to stop, so.
Definitely. I agree with you 100%, Color. I think that at some point that needs to be, that needs to stop. I personally, I hated the picks at first, because I was so hell bent on this makes complete sense. They're going to go offensive line. Why the heck would they not address this in the offseason at all up until that point? That's the only thing that made sense. It was offensive line, maybe linebacker. I could see maybe being an option there, and also running back. The running back out of the picks, honestly, was the only one that made sense based on what I was prepping myself for prior to the draft, right? So if you look at it at first, you're like, oh man, what did we do? But then actually I reflected on it a bit and I kind of see what we're trying to do, but there's a lot of unanswered questions here. You have to look at what does Vic Fangio want to do? He talks about this new scheme that he has cooked up and he wants to see it in action. What does that entail? Does that entail more corners or DBs or safeties or even hybrid corner safeties be on the field at once versus defensive linemen or linebackers? Is that what is it call for? There's part two is also the fact that and this is kind of a broken take. Could it be that Miami Dolphins were off of Boyer even before last season even started? And maybe that's why we picked up the linebacker we did with the what was it, the third round pick that we had last season in last draft. And that's why he didn't really see the field too much because really, as we argued on Shake Money Show, are we really dark horsing these players to kind of like keep them on the side and healthy for when the main guy comes in? You know what I mean? Is that a possibility? These are things to think about. I do really feel that Cam Smith could definitely see a starting time in situations where one, you have to look at Xavier Howard. He had groin issues all throughout last season. Maybe he needs to rest. Maybe they don't expect him to be 100% right when the season starts. So maybe they want to have him in there for limited time when they can. In addition, I could definitely see us playing double running back roles with A-Chain in the backfield along with Mostert or Jeff Wilson, or hypothetically, until it happens, Delvin Cook. I could see that happening. Can you imagine having Delvin Cook and A-Chain in the backfield at the same time? You can have one or the other swing out into the slot position, wide receiver position, and then they not only have to worry about passing game that you have Jalen Waddle and you have Tyreek Hill and whoever else, but you also have to worry about the running game. It forces them to respect the running game is basically what I'm getting at. So both picks make sense, but it wasn't the plan I expected, and that was the shocker for me. I did surprisingly and I want to say it was about 2 Broken Take episodes ago, or it was the one before we had El Capitan. I want to say I was the one that did say that, watch, we're going to draft Xavier Howard's replacement in this draft. I told everybody it was going to happen. And I still think Cam Smith could grow to become that guy that eventually takes over for him. Now, in the first round, shocker to me, I want to say it's all of the Detroit Lion picks. That was the biggest shocker for me because they were the one team, honestly, they drafted based on need, not BPA. And all of those picks, honestly, if you look at it, they weren't the best player available. They were all need picks. And they said, you know what? We're going to do it just like the New England Patriots. we're going to go ahead and take our needs now. We're not going to wait and possibly miss out on them. So hands off to them for having the balls to do it. But at the same time, it was a shocker. And to be honest, they took every single one of our targets. Did you guys notice that? They took Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta. I want to say every person they had was on our board.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you could say that everybody they took was somebody that could have been very likely for us to take. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, you can say it that way too. That's true. That means that you can see where our Dolphin, Dan Campbell being there in our Dolphin history and our process, how we process the game, when our beliefs come from, they kind of match up. So that's my take on the draft. What did you grade our draft?
Man, I give it a C right now, man. Wait and see and letter C. I think especially in the bottom half of the draft with the Higgins pick and the Hayes, I think at best you can only count them as projects, developmental guys. I don't see either of them being ready to come in and contribute right away, which again really is puzzling to me, man. Considering where the team is supposed to be at right now, which is a player or two away, and I don't know. That's what threw me as I watched our picks roll out. I know we were in a bad position in terms of only having 4, not much capital to wheel and deal, but there seemed to be players on the board that I think could have plugged some of those needs. I know right now there's word of injury concerns, right, and potential character issues with Darnell Washington. But that was a guy I had identified a long time ago as the guy we needed to plug in as, an auxiliary lineman / seam threat, right? He's fast enough. He timed fast enough. I'm old enough to remember Farrell Edmonds, right, and how he used to devastate defenses down the seam when Marino would laser him a couple passes. And I saw this guy serving a similar role potentially while also firming up our blocking. And it pisses me off, man, that the Pittsburgh Steelers grabbed that guy because I can see him going on to have a Hall of Fame career with them. He's the perfect Pittsburgh player.
Yeah, and he was still there. We could have had him with that third pick, to be honest. To be honest, I could have definitely seen the Miami Dolphins trading out of their second round pick and moving down and getting more picks. You know what I mean? Because then you could have still gotten Cam Smith possibly. You could have still gotten, and then and add Washington eventually, or even, other players that we, we're definitely in need. I do agree with you. Hayes is honestly a project player. I can see that. Now, I have a question about Higgins. We weren't really high on Gesicki being that tight end wide receiver type of person. Is it possible that they drafted Higgins because his knowledge of the wide receiver route tree, and they do plan to, that's the type of tight end that they want. They want someone that can run the wide receiver routes perfectly versus someone, that may round them out or may not know the route tree specifically, if you know what I mean.
Just like last year, how Izakama was Welker's pick, I think this guy Higgins is Embry's pet project. I think this is probably a guy that Embry sold on Greer and McDaniel that, hey, you give me this guy and I can change him into what we want, which I see at max like a Jordan Reed. I don't know if you guys remember Jordan Reed from the Redskins a couple of years ago.
I remember him.
He was a really devastating offensive threat from the tight end position, more of an H-back, right? But he could run all the routes. He was, he'd break defenses wide open. So I think that Higgins projects to be a guy like that if he develops. But
do you think he could be like and correct me on the name, I can't remember his name, but he played for the Saints and eventually went to Seattle and then Chicago. If you remember, he was basically a tight end playing wide receiver. I can't think of his name. Oh God. It'll come back to me, but that's basically how I see it. I could see him, he could be a Jordan Reed. You're absolutely right.
He reminds me of your guy, Shake. What was that guy from UF a few years ago? The murdering guy?
Kyle Pitts.
No, Aaron, the tight end.
Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah, he's an Aaron Hernandez type. A little bit smaller, but potentially as a tight end, but
Yeah.
pretty dynamic. Pretty
And it's
dynamic.
shooting. Hey, by the way, one thing I mentioned on the show earlier today that I thought about. I said, listen, I think they wanted Gesicki. McDaniels wanted Gesicki. I just think they didn't want his price tag. I think, look, he said, look, you're a good wide receiver, but if you're gonna demand the money that you're asking, I'm gonna need you to do blocking and passing. So I think they wanted a wide receiver like Gesicki. I just didn't think they want the price tag. They came with Gesicki.
I don't agree with that because if you look what he signed for, it was breadcrumbs.
A 1 year deal, though.
Yeah, but we would have signed him.
Yeah,
for
but
that.
see,
That's what I
so
don't
here's the
understand.
thing. The thing about it is he feels that that Belichick is going to use him and he's going to get his big payday, because a lot of players they go for crumbs in New England end up with big paydays.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. I could definitely see that. He for me, I think the writing was on the board. He wanted to leave in the first place. He built his dream house in New Jersey, of all places.
Correct.
Right? He's from that area. Okay, I understand. Him and his wife want to have their kids there and everything. And if Miami really was the goal and it was just about the money, he wouldn't have gone on his best friend's podcast and talk about how they thought they would be in Jersey, in their new home, not back here because they got tagged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have talked about it like that. That's why I think the writing was on the wall. He never really wanted to be here. Plus the fact, if you actually go back at it, if you look at it, what did he sign for? What was it? 1 year, $4 million deal, I think? Is it something like that?
It wasn't that much. But like I said, I think he's going to make a big payday after this year.
Who would have said no to, even if we signed him for, let's say, a 3-year, $21 million deal, who would have said no?
Yeah.
Who here would have said no? Nobody would have said no to this. That's why I think that I think the writing was on the board. He was going to be gone no matter what. So, Color, you got anything to add on the tight end position or anything? I think we lost Color for a moment.
No, not really. Not really. I mean, I just don't think. I think what Gesicki wanted, how Gesicki wanted to be utilized here, he doesn't have the skill to be utilized that way. And so there was really nothing here for him anymore. Offensively, and I think couple that with what you were saying about his private life, and I mean, I don't know though, Shake. I don't know if the Patriots are interested in giving a guy like him money. He has to rise to like what they expect from their tight end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the only way he'll get the money from them is if he becomes another Aaron Hernandez or Gronk or whoever, anybody else they've had there.
Yeah, but I also see him because you got what's his name, Bill O'Brien back in there, who's a great offensive mind. So I think they're going to be using him a lot more than they were going to use him here. So it's going to help his value increase, because unfortunately, because of his lack of use last year, his value decreased tremendously. So he had to take what he had to get.
Okay, and there is something to be said that he may get that payday from another team.
Yeah.
I could see that. But it's really hard for me to see Belichick not sticking it to him, like he does every other player. You know what I mean?
Sure. Shake Money, what was your grade for the draft?
I'd say a B-. B.
B-, okay. What about you, Color? What did you have as a grade?
That's exactly where I had from draft night till now is B-. To Kahari's grade, I wanted to go C+ because I was actually thought it was average, but I was positive about it, so I wanted to be able to put a plus on it. Yeah. But I actually like the players better than why I think we drafted them, so I want to put a minus in there. But I still want to give the grade, so I'm going B- like I have from draft night.
Gotcha. So for me, here's how I look at it: as a position of value, they get an A+. The value that we got these players at and where we drafted them, A+, right down the board. I cannot disagree. But as a position of need, I'm gonna go with a B, just a flat B. Um, I do see how they can be used and how they can make an impact right away. I can see ways that it can happen, um, but I don't think it was the most pressing need, so to speak. Unless there's something we don't know, you know what I mean? Unless there's something in the works, but until we get there, that's that. I think that's where my grade will probably be and probably stay. To be honest, um, I do understand Kahari's point of view, the fact that he gave a C or C plus. Um, I kind of see what he means. It's kind of wait and see. We don't know what they do. If they bring in, let's say, 2 veteran offensive linemen, then it doesn't look so bad. I get their point. Here's a broken take. We may have drafted these players, maybe for the future, but maybe the Dolphins aren't as sold on to it as what you think. You
Well,
think about it.
that is the indictment, isn't it? If that is the plan, then
Mhm.
apparently they're ready to move off from QB number one.
Again, Kahari, if those players turn out to be good grades because we're drafting them for a different type of player,
Mm-hmm.
then we could be looking at an A- for all we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, and that's kind of what I want to bring.
That's exactly what I meant by why we drafted him. And that's why I lowered. I put the minus on, but upgraded the based on the players to a B, because I suspect that there's another reason why we drafted these particular players and the type of players they are. Except maybe cornerback, because I know cornerback we did get a lot of heavy injuries on last year. So
I mean,
listen, I tend to be over cynical when it comes to the Dolphins, man. It's been 20, 30 years of futility, right? We got a member of the community now whose commentary I enjoy, Mr. Negative. He stole my nickname. He stole my nickname. I'm more negative than Mr. Negative. That's typically where I'm at when it comes to the Dolphins, man. And it's a heartbreak story.
And Kahari, if you don't know, this is broken takes. So the crazier the take, if you have something that you're worried that you can't say publicly, this is the place you can say it.
Well, yeah, and to that point, Kahari, for example, would be something I've been wanting. I wanted to say earlier, but I kind of couldn't get out until I remembered I was on Broken Takes. This guy Achain, it's like his whole profile is like, did Ross call up Greer and was like, why is it that the Kansas City Chiefs keep pumping out these number 10s that and like when he's looking at, he's like, I want a Pacheco, you know what I mean? And it's like, we get this guy, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Maybe it's Greer's pick. I don't know. But here's the reality of it, though. What I was getting at is, like, if you look at the history of how teams draft, they are supporting who the head of their organization is, which is typically the quarterback. Right. These positions don't necessarily support the quarterback. It doesn't support Tua in the sense of keeping him upright and keeping him healthy. It doesn't necessarily support the passing game in the sense of the timing that Tua needs. Tua does not benefit off of these. In fact, these positions that they drafted, one, it benefits the defense. I get that. But two, it actually helps get the ball out of Tua's hands faster by handing it off, right? Or tossing it to another player. Swing pass.
Right. Exactly like the West Coast is designed to do.
Exactly. But here's the other part of it. It still doesn't tell me, it doesn't shout out to me that the Dolphins are 100% into Tua and it's all Tua. This is Tua's team. Why is it so hard to pry those words from our organization? Because
San Francisco has no problem spitting out the words themselves. They have no desire to put any value in the quarterback. They've outright said it. They've we built a team that can win without a quarterback. All you need is an average guy that can distribute the football in a West Coast system. And we absolutely put no value on the quarterback. They're like, we draft a guy like Trey Lance, for example. We're off of him. He's gone. You know what I mean? Done. It didn't work.
Here's a better example, Color. The New York Giants I want to say if it wasn't last year, it was the year before. Daniel Jones looked like garbage. You thought he was 1 foot out the door. They were about to kick him out. And what did the general manager come out and say? We support Daniel Jones. He's our quarterback. We're going to do everything to support him. I mean, they had nothing but we're going to support him. He's our guy type of talk that they provided. And look what happened. He ended up getting a long-term contract this season. He wasn't the best, but he didn't look horrible either at the same time.
It wasn't even the GM man. It was the owner that actually said that.
I'm sorry. The owner said that. Our owner is like, well, that's up to the head coach. Head coach, well, he's a Miami Dolphin and he's the starting quarterback. And the next Chris Kerr, we're always looking to upgrade. This is basically all the verbiage that we get from these people, right? We can never just get he's our man, deal with it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? That's
because
all
they can't. Because the Miami Dolphins LLC cannot do that. They cannot risk this investment. Period. Cowherd was absolutely right.
More like they can never.
What was that, Kahari?
I'm going to say more like they can never admit to a mistake. More like they can never admit to a mistake.
Right, but the business can
switch gears publicly.
Right, but the business can take action that admits to that. You see what I'm saying? Like, they're not just going to sign a multi-zillion-dollar deal. I mean, they're a corporation first. You know what I mean? Cowherd's spot on with that.
If you believe in Tua, then you do everything you can to protect him. Yeah, you give him weapons, right? But, I mean, we're already regarded as the most weapon-rich team in the league. You know, so
which brings me to one thing I wanted to add, Kahari. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to point out the tertiary reason why I had given a B was also that it seems to me we are building this West Coast style conveyor belt of every position has a line of players behind it that are pretty decent depth and upcoming. You know what I mean? We've almost got everything, and that's what the draft spoke to me was that. We put these certain guys in these certain positions now, and we've got the conveyor belt going.
Right.
Now it's up to either finding a quarterback or the quarterback to do the job that we have.
You brought up something, Color. You said that this is a business and they should be able to take action and whatnot. You're absolutely right. But here's kind of a segue into our next topic. The Miami Dolphins and any NFL organization, they have a scale they have to look at. They look at what sells tickets, what affects margins. They look at their profits and all of these different things that weigh in their options. And I think that the Miami Dolphins, if you look at all of their moves, everything they've done in the past 3 years, what has it done? It's sold tickets. It doesn't equate to Super Bowls. It doesn't equate to, we're going to be a winning organization. It's how much money I can make at that time. You look at bringing in a Tyreek Hill, right? And McDaniel. What did those two things do? They sold tickets. Keeping Tua technically sells tickets. It keeps butts in the seats. That's what ends up happening. And what the reason I'm bringing up ticket sales and profitability and marketability. Hold on, Color.
Sorry.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because it actually segues into our next topic of things. And how the NFL, because it is based on profits, it is shared profits as well, which not a lot of people know about, which we'll get into. Their decision making on who they draft and what players they bring into this league is weighed on that. And sometimes it's to an unfair advantage. So I don't know if you guys caught it. Deion Sanders made a comment about the NFL, basically stating that this is basically what he said. He says, so proud is you. And he was talking to Isaiah Bolden, who was the corner that was drafted out of Jackson State in the 7th round. You deserve to be drafted much higher, but I'm truly proud of you. I know how much you want this. I'm ashamed of the 31 other NFL teams that couldn't find the draft value in all of the talented HBCU players. And we had 3 more draft-worthy players at JSU, right? Which we took one of them as an undrafted player, and that's Aubrey Miller, right? Which we'll talk about him momentarily. But it's really, this is starting to become an issue. It becomes a concern. Do you think that the NFL kind of gives a disadvantage to the HBCU teams because of the marketing and the funding and the profitability that they get versus predominant white schools, or PWIs as they're known. What do you think? Let's start with you, Kahari, since you're a special guest.
Well, I think you're right in pointing out to the current discrepancy in looks, like when it comes to the talent that's there at the HBCUs. Basically, HBCUs aren't in vogue with the NFL right now, and strangely enough, I think that mirrors what's happening also on the bigger stage, because if you look at HBCUs in general, from 2002 to 2019, for instance, the funding that HBCUs were supposed to receive in general for their overall has gone down, right? PWIs are getting a bigger share of the pie than ever before. And this is part of a history of HBCUs being, perpetually underfunded. So since 2002, the proportion has gotten even lower, right? So basically, if HBCUs weren't on the radar before, they're less on the radar even now. So for a mega corporation like the NFL to then pivot and focus on HBCUs would be going against that bigger trend in a sense. So I think that's where we find HBCUs at this time when it comes to producing football talent. It's not that the talent isn't there. I mean, if you look at the history of HBCUs, they produce some of the most iconic, greatest football players in the league's history. If you look at, even our own Miami Dolphins, Larry Little, right? Legend, Miami Dolphin legend from Bethune-Cookman right here in Florida. He's not the only one. So it's not that the HBCUs don't have talent. It's that the NFL, which is becoming more of a mega corporation tied into the top foundations, right, is doing exactly what you said, focusing on its feeder system, the Alabamas, the Georgias, etc. And who's getting left out? The wild cards, the HBCUs, who are there. They've always been there. They've always been outproducing, their level of funding and their level of facilities. They're always putting more out than what goes into these things, but now they're just being ignored. So.
You want to talk about HBCU schools, right? And the players that came from HBCU. Let's not kid ourselves. These aren't nobodies. We're talking Shannon Sharp. We're talking Michael Strahan. We're talking Richard Dent, if you remember him. Art Shell.
Jerry Rice.
Willie Lamler, if you remember him. Jerry
Willie
Rice.
Lanier.
Steve McNair is from an HBCU school.
Walter Payton.
Walter Payton is the big one. Yeah. These are top names. In fact, and this is something that, I've done some research on. At one point in the I want to say the later years of the AFL and the early years of the NFL, the amount of African Americans in the NFL were predominantly from HBCU schools. In fact, one out of every two people was from an HBCU school at one point. Yep. So, and that's not a joke. That's like either basically the two things were either you played for Notre Dame or you came from an HBCU school. That's how it was. And the fact that we've driven away from that so much, it makes me question what is contributing towards I don't want to say the downfall, but pushing the HBCU schools away from the spotlight in this sense. I've looked at it, and you talked about the amount of funding they get and whatnot. There's not a joke behind that. There's a game, I think it was in 2017, and it was somewhere here. I can't remember the schools, but I know a Florida team was playing them. And the Florida PWI school got like a couple $1 million for this game, whereas the HBCU school only got $900,000 in comparison.
That was going to be a question I had for Kahari also. The funding that you speak of that's gone down, are you referring to the revenue as Kahari? I mean, as Ali is pointing out, as far as what the networks and what the billing is for the game, like what they, the sharing off ticket sales and all that stuff. Is that what you're referring to as having gone down? The reason I ask is because I do know that our past president had actually recently signed a kind of I don't want to call it new money per se, but it was a situation where the president had noticed that, look, these guys from all these HBCUs are coming to the government every single year and getting just enough to force them to have to come back to the government next year and kind of with their hands open again. You know what I mean? So the president had signed a new order that had allowed them to receive like to where they wouldn't get it all in one lump sum, but they would get the funding. First of all, an increase, and second of all, hey, you're going to get this for 10 years, so you ain't got to come back every single year like a bunch of
Well, I
paupers,
used the term in vogue earlier because, sorry, I think you were cutting off there. I thought you were, I don't know if Color's still trying to talk. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, no, I'm good. I was just saying, rather than them have to come back every year like a bunch of paupers with their hands open, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, Color, all public institutions go to the government for funding, right? And so there's a certain amount of money that states grant to their public institutions to educate the population of each state, right? And what has happened perpetually with HBCUs is that they've never been given their fair share per student, right? And
I see what you're saying. So even though you have one revenue source going up, let's say the federal government, you have the states that are still disparagingly low and even lowering. You know what I mean? Is that what you're?
Well, that is just one of the areas, you see, because the existence of HBCUs they owe their existence to the federal government, right? I mean, I don't want to go too far. I don't want to bore anybody, but these were institutions built coming out of the legacy of the Civil War, the Morrill Act, the Land Grant Act, right? As the country was industrializing, the vision for African Americans, for the former enslaved population, was for them to be tooled up to get the skills they needed to be integrated into the American workforce, right? And so there's another side of it.
What kind of effect do you think that's had overall in the long term?
Well, I mean, all the studies show that it's had a tremendous impact, right? When it comes to establishing a Black middle class, when it comes to allowing a foundation of economic stability for African Americans in the country, it doesn't happen at all without the HBCUs. But aside from the governmental side of this, though, you also have the fact that philanthropic organizations like the Carnegie Foundation, the Mellon Foundation, and others, they contribute the funds that go into these HBCUs, that go to all public universities, right?
Gotcha.
And again, what we've seen from
the boosters, is that what you would call the boosters, right? Pretty much.
Somewhat, but at an even bigger level. Like these are the guys who fund Harvard and Yale, give them their endowments, whatever.
Right.
And the thing is, between 2002 and 2019, that proportion has gotten smaller. Right. And so, in other words, it's as if in this most recent phase, HBCUs in terms of athletics have been phased out, even as guys like Deion Sanders, Ed Reed, almost became the coach of Bethune last year, have dabbled into the HBCUs, come into the HBCUs. They're shocked at what they're seeing, because what they're seeing is that these schools, which have always done more with less, are in many ways in even more desperate situations today. And that's a glaring story. I mean, like just yesterday, if you go and Google a story from CBS News yesterday, it reports that HBCUs today receive 178 times less foundation funding than Ivy League schools, right? And this goes in the face of stats that show that HBCUs produce disproportionate number of dentists, doctors, engineers, you name it. Tupac had that poem, "A Rose That Grows from the Concrete." Well, these HBCUs have been operating off of nothing budgets, not getting anything that they deserve from either the state, the federal government, or these foundations, and yet they're still producing.
So would you attribute that to a lack of public awareness, or do you think there's something deeper to it? Because if and I don't disagree with what you're saying about in the let's say in the, the sectors you had referred to of medicine and engineering and all these other places where, it has really been beneficial. These are some pretty high paying positions and do create some longer term wealth in those communities. And I'm wondering, are people just dropping the ball because they just assume that the help's being given and it's not? Or
Yeah, well, today that certainly would be the case, right? There is a blind spot when it comes to most Americans' understanding of how these colleges work, how they exist, why they exist. For instance, most people, when they think of a HBCU or understand a HBCU means like historically Black college university, they're shocked or surprised to find out that there are whites who go to these institutions, Hispanics that go to these institutions, right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, ain't you ever seen Drumline, the guy that carried the tuba, man?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
One of FAMU's best quarterbacks over the last decade was a white kid from Plantation, Ryan Stanley, who was like a 3-year starter at Florida A&M. You know what I'm saying? So that reality sometimes isn't quite understood when it comes to the fact that these HBCUs were created themselves out of a country that had given African Americans a bad shake. When it comes to no pun intended, shake money.
That's all good.
But when it comes to race relations, class relations, etc., right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Sure.
and so when you look at the location of the majority of the 100 or so HBCUs, they're in the very same southern states that recommitted to Jim Crow, right? Immediately after the building of these institutions. And so they established patterns of neglect that have continued into today. And now with the NFL becoming, focusing on the international scene, right? And becoming a mega corporation where all the franchises work in concert and they have a feeder pattern coming from, the SEC. We see them, forming a mega league so that it can essentially be a feeder system of talent. The HBCUs have just been left out of that, or for the most part. And so it's just harder for an HBCU player to get the exposure, to get the NFL would have to break their operational code when it comes to routing players into the league. They've got to do something, and the HBCUs know all. I mean, they've tried. They've created the HBCU Legacy Bowl. They've had an HBCU specific combine to try to give these players more of a foot in. But that's where the disappointment comes from that you're hearing from a Deion Sanders.
So I've got one more. I've just got one more sort of pressing question for you, Kahari, and then I'll let Shake take over. And it really, we talk backstage about certain perspectives and all that, and this is as far as I want to go right now on Broken Takes. But I did want to ask the question: do you think and hold on just a moment, I got a helicopter flying by. There's some kind of police chase going on.
South Florida. You know what I'm saying?
561, baby.
These are some wild boys up there.
Well, I don't know. They're heading like southwest, so that'd be like Boynton area, I think, from where I'm at. Anyway, we'll deal with it. So live recording, ladies and gentlemen. You get it right here. On location. Anyway, so not to go too deeply in trying to define words and differences between words, okay? But with not only the NFL's but society's heavy focus right now on equity in the PWIs, not equality, but equity in the PWIs. Do you think maybe that's having the adverse effect of kind of leeching off of that traditional support for the HBCUs?
You talk about the attack against DEI programs at the PWIs?
No, I would say the focus on changing the PWIs to the focus on equity in the PWIs and bringing equity to the PWIs. You see what I'm saying?
Well, the last time that HBCUs were in vogue was like this in the 60s and 70s, coming off the crest of the civil rights movement, right? And so you could probably imagine that some NFL franchises, right, would have, rode that wave a bit, right? And you do see a mini season of the HBCUs being back in vogue up until like the late 70s. But what happens next is that you got TV deals coming in, cable TV, and with that big money infusion, right? At a time when in the NBA, the black players, there's this attitude that the sports leagues are getting too black in a sense. I don't know if you guys, heard about that. Like the big knock against the NBA was that there were too many black players, and how, Larry Bird and then Magic Johnson, that rivalry saved the league, and then there were image issues, right? And it had to do with this cultural, reckoning, right, in a sense, right? Well, anyway, so then HBCU players get phased out again, right? Now, lately, you've seen a trend of HBCUs, certain HBCUs, not all of them, but the big ones like the Howard Universities, the FAMUs, the Spelmans, the Xaviers. They've all had record enrollment, right? There's been a repopularization of HBCU athletics, HBCU programs. Cam Newton's little brother, for instance, was the quarterback at Howard University a couple years ago, and they, when Dion was at Jackson State, they got some 5-star recruits to go there, etc. So, there's in many ways the HBCUs are revving themselves up in terms of producing top talent, right, and preparing top talent for these major leagues like the NFL. So again, therein lies the complaint that you get from Dion, about how can you still afford to ignore this talent that's coming out of these places and institutions?
And I'm glad you brought that up. But before I respond to that, Shake Money, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead, Shake. You're on mute.
Again, yeah. Well, one thing about the funding with the HBCUs, they were saying that a lot of it is that they need more alumni to give as well. That not too many alumni are giving back.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and that is, that certainly is an issue.
Maybe Shake, I'm glad you brought it that way, because you kind of more you brought a little more less jargon to the very question that I was trying to ask earlier. That's what I meant by like Kahari was referring to, the fact that so many other sectors have been enriched and created wealth for said alumni to come to give back.
It's not just in sports color. It also goes across the board when it comes to everything, development and research, any type of program. The HBCU schools are not getting the funding in comparison. I'll give you an example. Kahari has brought up Ivy League schools. Proverbially, Harvard is a famous one, right? We talk about Harvard. Now, Harvard's athletics, they put in approximately, for football specifically, their budget is about, I want to say about $17 million, right? In comparison, you have Howard, which is one of the bigger HBCU schools. Howard only has a budget, and this is money that I'm looking at based on my research back from about 2017. So not too far way ago, but it's about 4 years difference, right? They have a budget of about $10 million, right? So yeah, 17 to 10 isn't that much of a big difference. It is when you think in the million in the macro of things. But
that's
also
another physics department.
The average, what is it? What's the conference that they're in? The SWAC, I believe it is. Sorry, I can't think of the.
No, Howard's in the MEAC, the Mid-Atlantic Conference.
Yeah,
but there is the SWAC, the Southwestern Atlantic Conference.
Yeah, so the average between the both in the amount of money that they get put towards football or their athletics in general is not even $10 million. It's like $9.7 million is the average budget that they have.
Right.
So when you compare that to other schools like the bigger, the SECs, the ACCs, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 and whatnot, those have hundreds of $1 million athletic budgets in comparison. You know what I mean?
And to respond to Shake's point about alumni giving back, right?
Yeah.
HBCUs support disproportionately low-income students, right, who don't come from the kind of generational wealth that allows the kind of alumni giving that you see with some of these big PWIs. Like that Oklahoma State program, I forget the name of the multi-billionaire who basically treats that program like a toy. I don't know if you don't remember that guy's name, but that kind of wealth just doesn't exist yet when it comes to the kind of alumni that these institutions have produced. Yes, they're producing middle and upper middle class professionals, but not with the kind of generational wealth that some of these other schools,
Kahari, because as they were just pointing out with the money, that difference in money is another physics department. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where you would churn out more, as far as quantitatively, you churn out more people with physics degrees or medical degree, or whatever the department. I just brought that one up because that's something I'm into on the side. You know what I mean? But
now, during the majority of the history of these institutions, you had Jim Crow, and most of these schools being in the South meant that these schools' existence was under physical threat. Like if you visit most of these schools, they have sites where bullet holes were shot into, statues and stuff like that. Still, as monuments to this day, right? If you go to like Claflin University, right, which brags to create the most successful socioeconomic outcomes for its students, you have to go past a Confederate flag waving in Orangeburg, South Carolina, to get to this university, for instance.
Wow.
Not to say that I'm not really getting into politics whether it should or shouldn't be flying. I'll leave that to everybody's own opinion, right? But that is the
neighborhood you got to roll through to get there, regardless of right or wrong.
Right, and it has taken Tennessee and Maryland, right? Those are the two states that were sued most recently by the HBCUs in those states to get their fair share of the funding. And those lawsuits have only come belatedly in the last 5 years. And some might say, why haven't schools sued earlier on? Well, you're suing the very same legislatures and congressional members that you're counting on.
Oh, so it's not directly to the schools from the feds. It goes to the states from the feds, and the feds divvy it out to the schools.
I'm not exactly sure how it works, to be honest with you, but there's a matching of funds from the state at the federal level. And again, it's the same system that works for the PWIs as well, but the PWIs get their fair share, more than their fair share in many instances. Whereas some of that overabundance on the PWIs is coming at the detriment of HBCUs, which have never received these are the basis of some of these successful lawsuits that have been levied in those two states. The fact that they can show on paper how they're not getting the cost per student that should have been granted by law.
Right. And add on top of that the lack of equity because of the theoretical idea that, because you started from so far behind the 8 ball historically, that even if there was even funding right now, you'd have to almost give more funding to kind of catch up. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about,
and I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to debate whether those hypotheses are real or not. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into that.
To the NFL, to bring this back to the NFL,
there is something to be looked into on that. There is something to be actually said. Okay, let's really understand that.
And to bring this back to the NFL,
I always look at it like when I was a kid. If I got spun around and got dizzy, I would have to go 1 or 2 many more times spun around the other way to get my equilibrium back. You know what I mean?
Right. Now, I don't want to be any conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but now to bring it back to NFL, I mean, with the NFL, right, who's the, feeds off of the status quo as it exists, turn around and give this kind of a stage or a spotlight to these very same HBCUs at this time. I mean, the conspiratorial thinker in me says that, there may be a reason why the NFL doesn't want to see HBCU players in the league, because then they might have to answer these kinds of questions or deal with these kinds of issues.
They're right now publicly they're checking all the right boxes, so they can kind of do anything they want behind the scenes. And I'm not insinuating anything per se, but you know how I feel about that as far as the shield goes. You know what I mean? And the one other thing I wanted to bring up though, was that we hadn't maybe thought of earlier, was the effect that the NILs are having on the whole situation. Does the NFL feel like they can get in the long-term future that they can get more value and many more players at a lower initial cost, because these players are more going to be coming in a little more well off with their NIL deals, which let's look into the numbers. I don't know, but I'm almost willing to bet that the NIL deals are probably going to the HBCUs a lot less. That's just a shot in the dark guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to trust that, other than I think still waiting to see how this whole NIL system plays out. I honestly have no opinion. I couldn't answer that question right now.
Can't imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine a scenario where the PWIs are not benefiting more from the whole NIL system than the HBCUs. I can't imagine a situation where it will not.
I don't think they could compete with the kind of money that's being shelled out to top level players.
I actually 100% agree. I think the NILs are just giving more advantages to the PWIs, and
exactly.
in addition to that, it even gives more advantages to certain conferences as well, specifically the SEC and the Big Ten versus like some of the other smaller conferences like the MAC. So there's a lot of advantages that gives versus the HBCU.
And even then, let's add, let's face it, richer, more, well-off, traditionally white towns and cities whose local car dealership can give the town quarterback a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, let's also look at the fact is this, right? So you have a guy like Aubrey Miller, who was touted by some very big programs such as Alabama, and decided to follow Deion Sanders to Jackson State, right? The NILs could have made a big factor, but they didn't in that case. Aubrey Miller, just to give you a rundown on him, and just to give you an idea of what we have here. Aubrey Miller he is a 6'2", 229-pound linebacker, right? He ran about a 4.71. Aubrey Miller, he went to Whitehaven High School, was rated as they're saying a 3-star recruit. I've read elsewhere where he was as high as a 4-star recruit. Okay. After high school, he joined Missouri for a little bit. And in 2018, as a freshman, Miller saw action in just 2 games and played a total of 13 snaps. Linebacker for the Tigers, he recorded only 2 tackles, no assists. As a sophomore for the Tigers in 2019, Miller played in 1 game and took part in 4 snaps for the Tigers. In 2020, as a junior, he played in 5 games and contributed 340 snaps. He recorded 34 tackles, 8 assists, while making 18 stops. In coverage, he just had 1 pass breakup, no interceptions, and a QB rating of 97.1. As a pass rusher, he produced 5 pressures and 4 quarterback hurries and no hits. Later on, he transferred to Jackson State, where as a senior for the Tigers, he was 2021. Miller Jr. played 13 games and took part in 744 snaps for the Tigers. He also added decent 65 tackles, 24 assists, and 44 stops. While in coverage, he made no pass breakups, no interceptions, and a QB rating of only targeted of 58.4. So because the QB rating was so low, it showed that he has good coverage skills. He tallied 26 pressures, included 12 QB hurries and 8 QB hits and 6 sacks on the season, right? That was in 2021. He backed it up in 2022. Very similar numbers. His QB rating went up a bit, but he still finished off with 9 QB hurries, 7 QB hits, and 2 sacks. He was also, I believe, the only HBCU player to be invited to the Senior Bowl, to get some exposure of some kind.
Right.
So I honestly think maybe they should have, maybe another bowl that includes players from these smaller schools. Let it be HBCU or some of the other types of smaller schools that are out there. That don't
They
get
have done
recognized.
that though, Ali. They within the last 2 years they've created, I think it's called the HBCU Legacy Bowl, right?
Okay.
And I think this was a brainchild of Dion and some other guys to do exactly that. And you know what? This is that's why I don't know if you're aware, but there was an uproar when Deion Sanders decided to leave the program and go to Colorado, especially within the African American community. Man, there were many people heartbroken and upset with his departure because there were a lot of hopes being placed on him as the guy who was going to bring in the NIL dollars, not just to Jackson State but to HBCUs in general, and attract that kind of attention. And so some people took it as far as saying that Sanders' actions were a betrayal of promises that he made. Now that's probably a little bit unfair to Sanders, right? Who also explained why he made the decision he did. But it sort of shows where these HBCs are at this current day and time, and how the potential is there, but the fact that the players are being ignored remains.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I really appreciate having you, Kohari. Did you have anything else to say about the subject?
Thank you very much.
I didn't know if you had to go, or can you stick around for a bit?
Well, I'm good, man. I can hang in there, man. And
you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I'm sorry, Sheikh, if you got more to say. I didn't mean to roll over you. I'm just really passionate about this subject, and I've been waiting to chop it up with Kahari about things like this for a long time. So I didn't mean to roll over you, man.
No, trust me. Growing up where I grew up, I know a lot of people that went to HBCU, so I know a lot about the subject.
Yeah, that's right, man. Big up my cousin Robbie Constant, man, from your neck of the woods, Shake. Carroll City went and played at Tuskegee for many years, man. So, family member.
My best friend's brother went to FAMU, so.
Oh yeah, and FAMU's produced. I mean, Earl Holmes, a lot of guys came out of FAMU.
And being from this area and having grown up here and all that, it's like it's right in my face. It's not anything I can miss, and I've seen it, and I've seen the positive effect throughout the communities over my lifetime. I've seen the negativity towards, let's say the traditional inequalities. You know what I mean? So, it's something that I've kind of been sort of, not secretly, but like secretly passionate about. I don't really, I don't have anybody in my world that is interested in talking about the kind of thing.
When that 79 game, when FAMU beat UM in the Orange Bowl, the name of the quarterback for FAMU was Sammy Knight. I'm wondering if that's our former strong safety, Sammy Knight's dad.
Right,
I wonder if he was a Sammy Knight Jr. I haven't been able to make the connection, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I went to I attended Lake Worth High School in Palm Beach County, and which you could argue, if that designation were to be levied on high schools, in our various regions, at least in my region. I know down obviously in Miami it's probably more common, but up here in Palm Beach, I mean, it's a lot of them are what you would call predominantly white high schools. You know what I mean? And there's a few that are HBCU-esque, if I could use that term, not flippantly. You know what I mean? Atlantic High School, Lake Worth High School, Palm Beach Lakes High, which, by the way, I attended for half a year in my senior year, and my music teacher was also the band director for that high school, and he was personal friends with the band director up at FAMU. So, I kind of got a real good, education right from somebody that's deeply involved with them, with HBCUs his whole life, and kind of opened the door to me as to the whole issue itself.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt you, Color, but I kind of wanted to stay on point with what we were talking about. Now, I brought up Deion Sanders. Now, there's been a Cowboys executive who've come out and actually speak and commented on Deion Sanders. Did you guys see what he said? Have you guys heard about this? He's the Cowboys vice president of player personnel, Will McClay, and was asked about Sanders' comments on the conference. He says, and this is what he said verbatim. Deion's doing a great job of promoting HBCUs and promoting Colorado and all those things. And so that's the part of what the deal is. He wants to see players drafted. We want to draft good football players, and good football players come from everywhere. There's not a conspiracy against drafting HBCU players. We're looking for players that will come from anywhere. I think that we've had the opportunities in the NFL in having things to highlight the HBCU schools. I think the players have to have draftable grades, the 32 teams with the picks in 7 rounds, and there's also the free agency period. So it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end up. I think we do our due diligence at all the schools in all the different places, and I applaud Deion for standing up for the HBCUs, but I also stand for my colleagues. And if there was one player drafted, there was probably nobody else that had high enough draftable grades. So that's what he says. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, you want to go first, Shake?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, no, I would just suggest that. Yeah, I'm sure that plays a part. I mean, who's going to turn down a franchise changing talent, right? But I don't, I hope what I've been saying tonight isn't reduced to, it's a conspiracy why they're not drafting the HBCU players, because that's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I am suggesting, though, is that with the moves that the NFL has been making to broaden its appeal internationally, right, to make football a competitive with soccer, right, on the international stage, so forth.
Yeah.
It becomes easier for NFL franchises to go to the tried and true fishing grounds, for lack of a better term, at the big colleges, the Alabamas, the Georgias. I mean, when you look at the number of players drafted from those big PWIs, I think it's a lot easier for a guy like Chris Greer or whoever the general manager is to not take the risk and to get a guy who has more visibility, more notability, who people know and have seen every Saturday on TV. When you draft a guy like that, it's much safer than taking a chance on an unknown quantity from an almost virtually invisible, HBCU. So some of that plays into it as well. And on that, as far as that Dallas franchise, they've done. I mean, every year they've invited. In my mind, they've led many other NFL teams in terms of trying to integrate HBCU players into their setup. Most recently with Marquise Bell from FAMU, who was a star safety at FAMU for a couple of years. And I think they've drafted, actually, or not drafted, but signed some other HBCU guys this year too. So, I mean, you know how it is. He's responding to Deion's criticism, and I think he did
I'll say it, Kahari. I cannot.
This
This may be a broken take, but I cannot shake the feeling. No offense, Shake. I cannot shake the feeling that this is like the old. 90% of the players in the NFL are black, so how could they be racist?
Yeah, some of that's at play too.
You know, I mean, they're drafting. Let's face it, they're drafting black players from these PWIs, and whether they know it or are doing it purposely or not, that provides them cover. That's why that's the kind of the question I was meaning earlier when, you know, with this new focus societally on equity at the PWIs, is that stealing focus from the HBCUs?
Well, one thing, another thing that I would you think that might help the HBCU cases is if, for instance, if there was to go to a bigger conference like the Sun Belt or the Pac-10 or something like that, kind of like to help them with recruiting, because at the end of the day, a lot of players, they want to go to, whether it be Arkansas, any school, the ACC, they know that they're going to be rated against, even though, let's say, for instance, Arkansas, you get a player, linebacker from Arkansas, they lose to all their games, but at the same time, he produced in those games against those big time schools is going to give him more attention, regardless.
Yeah, well, that kind of thing does happen every season, you know, Shake. But the issue though then becomes, how do you, if you move up into one of the more well-regarded conferences, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you recruit? How do you get a recruiting advantage, so to speak? Because remember, the issue is bigger than just the football field and athletics. The schools aren't being funded at the adequate level up until today. So when you look at like the locker rooms, when you look at the facilities, when you look at the shoulder pads, right? I mean, this was big Bethune last year when Ed Reed was there. Right? These schools are operating on next to nothing budgets, right? So to move into a bigger conference is like, you know, lambs to a slaughter, so to speak. You know, they just don't have the infrastructure to make a move like that at this time, and I think that's what some of the lawsuits are coming from. And and again, it's bigger than just athletics.
Yeah.
Once these schools are funded at the level that they deserve to be funded at, then in fact, you're probably going to see some of these schools become dominant programs again. And there may not be a lot of people who
Kahari,
the
I would have just
underlying thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I would have just stopped by now. Maybe call me Pollyannish if you want. You know what I mean? But I would have just stopped by now. That university is university is university, and yes, we can recognize them as HBCUs. But when it comes down to it, I'm not even look, we all, you know, we can, like, again, we can argue about equity, but what we can't argue about is equality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And to me, it's like the only way you're going to give a university a chance to compete with other universities and prove that it is a university is by funding it as well as the other universities. I mean, it's just all there is to it.
Well, that is exactly where the issue is. It's for parity in funding, right? Our equal share, right? I think that's what most HBCU representatives would say this is all about.
Right. We can talk about making up for past times later. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but they're not even getting equality,
right?
In my estimation.
Yeah, and here's the other part of it, and this is kind of where I'm going to tie the NFL into this. So far, we all agree that the PWI institutions have an advantage over the HBCU schools in regards to money. Everything comes down to the coin. Whoever has the money has the bigger advantage. Once HBCU schools start getting equal amount of money, you're going to start seeing that advantage start to basically spread thin, where it's an equal opportunity for all schools at that point. But when it comes
how about
to
we
the
make
NFL,
them all national monuments, and maybe they'll get the proper funding then.
And here's what I'm going to get at, Color. With the NFL, it comes down to money. People don't realize this, but this league is a profit-sharing league. When they sell tickets in Miami to the Dolphins game, all 32 teams are getting paid.
So you told me the NFL is communist, Ali?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're absolutely 100% like communists. They're a bunch of commies, right? They're making money off it. It's a big pyramid.
Okay, wait. We'll at least call them collectivists.
Well, yeah, we'll call them collectivists.
So then Colin Kaepernick was right by wearing that Fidel Castro shirt then.
Well,
Technically,
No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Hey, I'm just making a joke,
I mean,
guys.
there you
Just
go.
making a joke. I know
understand.
Shake, don't kill me, Shake. I
No,
know.
that's all good. That's all good, brother. No,
I'm just kidding, really. But the thing is that they make money off of it. They're gonna do what is best for the NFL. They're gonna do what is best to sell tickets. Listen, if I was the NFL, and I bet you we're gonna find out on some 30-30 or whatever special on the NFL or the NFL then the past or whatever show they put up, right? You're gonna find out that the NFL twisted the Baltimore Ravens arm and said, you have to pay Lamar Jackson because it was gonna be a big blow up, not just for the Ravens, for the entire league. If they didn't sign him and pay him the money that he got, right? It was
Al
going to turn
Sharpton
into
would come to town. Al Sharpton would have been knocking on the door.
dude. I'm going to tell you,
MSNBC
every
would have been
group
covering it.
that
And
has
for
a
the first
stake
time in my
in-
life, I'd have been right there with him. I'd have shaken Al Sharpton's hand for the first time in my life.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All that would have been came knocking on the door. And how many black eyes over the past 2 years has the NFL had to dodge, weave,
Right.
or take? It is ridiculous. Plus, I mean, to be honest, do we even know is the whole lawsuit with Flores done? Is that over with, or is it still ongoing?
I think it's still ongoing. But see, that's where I'm coming from when I say the conspiratorial theorist in me, right, might think that, hey, if you start drafting HBCU players, right, at a higher level, then you increase the profile of those same HBCUs. And then let's say, imagine the Caleb Williams, that's the name of the USC quarterback, right? Who's like the number one, the Caleb Williams of the world start to say, you know what, I might go to FAMU or Bethune-Cookman or Howard rather than USC or Georgia.
Maybe that'll be a positive from the NILs, because if a guy like him is getting an NIL before he makes a commit, then he's got the luxury to go wherever he wants to go. You know what I mean? And be, let's say,
can the NFL in the country
an activist, you know what I mean, and go to a HBCU as a message. You know what I mean?
My point though is that can the country and the NFL fathom FAMU defeating Alabama regularly on Saturday TV and having to put that FAMU band and that whole FAMU setup as
they'll have to put their money where their mouth is, Kahari, because again,
do they really want that?
They already fathomed Miami losing to a Middle Tennessee, whoever their name was. They don't even.
But again, it's just I didn't want to make light of the comment and say that Ali made a pun earlier, but he kind of did. But when he said the NFL is dodging black eyes.
Exactly.
The first thing I heard was actual black people's eyes, like, because they're playing this shell game with marketing, you know what I mean, to make everybody think that they feel one way when they're actually doing another.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying I believe that or that is what it is. I'm just saying that's
I think Ali meant swollen eyes. You know what I mean? But if you think about it, what is their whole marketing campaign? To get the black eyes off of them. Like, quit looking at us over here. We're not the ones. You know what I mean?
I understand. I was talking about getting punched in the face.
I get you, but again, you didn't intend the pun. And maybe I shouldn't have made it. But you know what I mean? That it seems to me that
it boils down to this: will a Nick Saban and a Jimbo Fisher, these guys, tolerate some of those guys who they have first choice at going to HBCUs? And if the NFL starts drafting more HBCU players, then that outcome becomes more likely. And you know how Nick Saban complained about the NIL? Imagine how he's going to complain about this extra competition. And let me tell you, the HBCUs have a lot to offer when it comes to social and cultural events and so forth. I mean, if you've ever seen, I don't want to go too far down this path, but I can see a world where some athletes are going to want to be on a campus for homecoming. For I don't know if you know about how great of a college life it is on some of these HBCUs, but they can be very alluring to a young person.
Ali, I say at this point, I'm not one to be all, using the government this way, but I'm at the point where, the bullet holes you mentioned earlier, I'm like, fuck it, just make them all a national monument, bro. Then they'll get properly funded.
In some cases, they are though, Color. In some places, they are historically designated sites.
I mean,
Actually,
start
you're hold on.
propane-driven tour buses like they got at all the Southwest monuments. You know what I mean?
But color. That's the other part of it. Most of their funding that they do get already comes from the government because most of their locations of where the schools are at are on state historical
land grants,
sites,
yeah.
land grants.
Of course.
They are getting money. It's just it's not the advertising money. It's not the
know,
money that pays millions upon
it's not
millions.
from the people that need to put their money where their mouth is. That's the problem because there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there marketing themselves as a as an ally and ain't putting their money where the mouth is. You know what I mean?
They don't have a Stephen Ross funding their building left and right, and paying their coach millions upon millions to be the coach. You know what I mean? Like what Stephen Ross does for University of Michigan. So, that's the issues that we have. I think they do need more people to contribute, let it alone be their alumni and stuff like that. It's just sad to see because I think there are players that deserve a look and who deserve to at least be drafted, like Aubrey Miller. I'm not saying he's the only one, but I'm just using him as an example because he's on our team. That's why I use him as an example.
I mean, I don't. Let's put a name on it. Mm-hmm. You're telling me Matt Ariza deserves to be drafted before a guy like Aubrey Miller?
After knowing what he did, no, hell no.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, if they were doing the psych tests on the white guys like they do on the black, I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Oh.
Maybe they detected something.
Yeah, that's true. I just think the sad part is it comes down to money, and the NFL is always going to do what pays them the most. That's the reality of it. And in all, I wish it was different.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
But somebody was touching on. Go ahead. No, I was saying you guys. No, go ahead. It was nothing important. Go ahead.
No.
Oh, sorry about that.
No.
I cut you, man.
No. You're good. No. I was just making small talk. But go ahead.
I know. I kind of forgot my point too.
No, I was gonna say that you were talking about bands. I said one of my favorite things. I went to North Carol City, and my best friend he went to Northwestern. So back when I was going to I went to high school from 92 to 96, 97. I stayed back a year. And one of the good things about that was that we played Northwestern Carol City at that time played opener every season. And one of the things I looked forward to the most was I went to a lot of Northwestern games because of him. But one of the things I always look forward to, like when Northwestern played Central or Northwestern played Carol City,
Soul Bowl or Jackson.
Yeah, the Battle of the Bands were
Battle of the Bands. Yeah, that's another.
Man, you ain't got nothing on Palm Beach Lakes High, man.
Well, hey, there's a whole. There've already been some documentaries about that topic alone. The feeder patterns of South Florida schools into like all of the HBCUs is a documentary waiting to be made. And let me tell you, that musical legacy goes back to like the foundation of jazz music and all. Fats Waller, Tallahassee, FAMU neighborhoods, all this kind of stuff. So
I don't think any school in the PWIs or at all have anything on any of the SWAC schools.
Hey, Kahar, you ever see a movie called The Bird?
Yeah.
The what?
The Bird?
No, not familiar with it. I don't think so.
It's Forrest Whitaker playing Charlie Parker.
Oh, Charlie Parker. Yeah. I did see that years ago.
Yeah, that music teacher I was telling you about. We watched that movie in class. That's when I watched it.
Oh, okay.
But you know what's funny is I remember one year they played Miami High, right? Mm-hmm. And when you seen the bands, when you see Miami High's band and you seen like Northwestern's band, you could tell there was a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
Mm.
Man. So yeah, I mean, HBCUs, man. Again, if they had the choice, nobody at HBCU would even want to be called an HBCU. But the fact is, it's America's history and culture, which has designated these universities as historical.
I'm glad you said that, Kahari, because I wanted to ask if that was actually a wise thought. You know,
Well,
like, is
it's
that what
not.
really needs to be done? Is to drop that name so they're recognized as regular universities like they should be?
Well, well, that's the thing, and again, it's not a self-designation. It's just a product of where this nation has been and where we're still at today, right?
Mhm.
These institutions have played a super important role in girding what a guy like, I don't know, W.E.B. Du Bois would have called a talented tenth, which was, a cadre of leadership that, has won some important battles, man, in the past, in terms of bringing us to a more equitable society today. So, and they continue to play that role today, but besides that, I also have to emphasize that these universities, even on the football field, have been institutions that promote full diversity and opportunity. Like I was shocked to find out how Booker T. Washington, going way back, right? And his money came from the Carnegies, right? The original Andrew Carnegie, you know what I'm saying, was built Tuskegee with his money, right? But he would go down into the Caribbean, to the Bahamas, to Cuba, to recruit students to come to HBCUs. My own great uncle from Barbados, right? When he came over to do medical school he was accepted into Vanderbilt University until they saw him and saw how dark his skin was, and they wouldn't accept him. And so he had to go next door to Meharry in Tennessee. So, I mean, these schools have played that kind of a role. And I don't know if my great uncle's consciousness at the time would have, he probably didn't consider himself a black guy. When he came to the United States, he definitely had more than a couple drops in him, of African blood. So, I don't want to, relive some of the racial pain of the past, because we're all Dolphins, we're all part of one community. But we got to recognize that these things have created the current status quo,
Definitely.
As bad as our football team is, I say draft everybody from an HBCU. What at least we get accomplished proving something.
Yeah.
Well, you saw that quarterback
we win.
You saw the quarterback we got now, James Blackman. He came from Arkansas State, but you probably might remember that he was at FSU for a few years and took a beating there when FSU was making its big coaching transition. And then for his senior year, he went to Arkansas State and finished up there.
Here's some other news from Miami. We just got the XFL put this out. So Miami Dolphins invited Freedom Akinmolandon, a defensive end from the Blackhawks, which I believe is St. Louis Blackhawks or Battlehawks. I'm sorry, Battlehawks.
Battlehawks, yeah.
Yeah. So he's in camp. So the XFL is already doing what I thought it would do, which would be like a feeder league into maybe providing some talent to the teams to evaluate.
Right. Well, that was almost natural anyway. They're going to tap that whether it's official or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Ali, I saw a report or a headline earlier today that said the USFL gave approval for the Dallas Stallions. I thought they already had the Birmingham Stallions.
They have a lot of different teams now, Color.
Are they going to have two with the same? Are they going to have two with the same name, or are they going to drop Birmingham?
Let's actually look that up. Thank you for bringing that up.
I double checked. Birmingham is not with the XFL. They're both USFL. But it said, the headline said Dallas Stallions approved by USFL.
And by the way, one last thing I want to say about the bands is TD got a free education because of the bands.
Right.
Oh wow, there you go.
Where TD go? Did he say where he went?
Yeah. I think he went to FAMU.
Oh, okay. Oh,
either FAM or Bethune. I can't remember I can't remember which one of the two, but it was one of those two.
So Dallas doesn't necessarily have a team yet. The teams that are listed are here is Birmingham, Houston, Memphis, Michigan, New Jersey, New Orleans, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. Those are the teams that I have. Let me look up. You said it was Dallas Stallions?
Yeah, it was a headline on my Google feed that said they got their name approved by the USFL.
They really ought to put a franchise in Orlando, man. I mean,
They do have, well, not
Oh,
the
that-
USFL, the XFL has a franchise in
Oh,
Orlando.
okay.
And no offense to them, they just were not a really good team at all. Like they're from top to bottom, from coaching to player talent and acquisition. They just couldn't catch a break.
Was that the team that Terrell Buckley was the coach of? The head coach?
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I had high hopes for them. They didn't do nothing. Unfortunately, their punter had more touchdowns than their quarterback, and that's not a joke. That's how bad it was, to be honest. But I mean, just my opinion. I don't know. That was the team that they had to cut one of their quarterbacks for giving the other team the plays. Yeah, that actually happened.
Wow.
So I'm reading the article you're talking about, Color. It says the USFL filed trademark applications for 12 teams last week. All but 2 were the names of teams that operated in the original USFL 40 years ago. One of the exceptions was the Dallas Stallions. The USFL former or current has never had a team with a Dallas moniker, but the USFL does have a team called the Birmingham Stallions that is playing in its second season in the revived USFL league.
Maybe the franchise is moving to Dallas.
That might be it. It might be that, or Dallas is trying to hold on to their name. Kind of like how the Cleveland Browns, when the organization went to Baltimore, the Browns wanted to hold, Cleveland wanted to hold the name to the Browns. You know what I mean? Maybe it's something like that. Yeah.
Could be.
Here, I'll share the article in private chat, by the way. So you'll have it.
I'm just already trying to come up with a good name for Birmingham.
Give
me a second, because it's going to be blockbuster.
Birmingham on Rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to try to incorporate pineapples somehow.
Oh man, Color taking shots.
Or surfboards.
Pineapple on pizza.
Birmingham Cousins.
The Birmingham Surf.
Oh man.
The Hawks. The Birmingham Hawks.
Hey, by the way, what was one of the funniest things I seen when Alabama was playing Notre Dame? You know how they had how they call convicts versus Catholics?
Yeah.
When they play Alabama, it's Catholics versus Cousins.
All right. How about the Birmingham Space Cadets?
Birmingham nobodies.
Birmingham Boars. They have alligators, right, in Alabama?
I don't know who's ever been to Alabama.
How about the Birmingham Hymns?
The closest I've been to Alabama, which is actually technically really close, is Biloxi, Mississippi. I used to live there. Well, there.
My best friend, actually, his name is Vaughn. Funny, my best friend, his name is Joe. His dad's name's Vaughn. But anyway, I say that because of all the Vaughns that we know. But anyway, he was a moonshiner in Alabama when he was growing up. He grew up in the 30s, in Alabama. He was a moonshiner.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing about that. Alabama is known for is some good old moonshine.
And about 15 years ago, we drove from Atlanta west through Alabama all the way to a small school called Livingston, where my cousin was graduating. And man, scariest drive I ever took in my life, man. Cotton blowing in the wind, man. I was scared as shit, dude. Right? But it was a great trip.
That's one thing about Florida. The further north you go, the further south you are.
The further north you go, the more Alabama it gets. Yeah. For sure.
The Birmingham helmets.
There you go. So let's talk about Dolphins a little bit. I saw a picture of some of our newer players in camp recently. Have you seen the tight end Saubert in his arms? He looks ripped as hell, man.
Giant. Eric Saubert.
Yeah. Me and Color watched some video of him, and I told him, people are trying to say this guy is a true blocking tight end, but the way he moves, I think there's some athleticism there that he could actually get down the field and get open quickly for a quick pass. You know what I mean?
He flashed a few times in Denver.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing, Kahari. I think he's a big body tight end. That things just maybe didn't work out there. Maybe they ain't right fit for them, whatever. But he definitely flashed a couple times.
Who was the tight end we used to have back in the Tannehill days? I can't remember his last name started with an F.
Fasano.
Anthony Fasano. Yeah.
He was kind of like a big guy like that too, wasn't he?
He can move pretty good too, actually.
Yeah.
So they're constantly comparing him to Durham Smythe.
Fasano always struck me as awkward, man. Like he wasn't a football player almost. I don't know. Maybe it was just me. He was successful, a good tight end. I just didn't ever strike me as a pure football player.
Where do you come from? Rutgers, I think.
Yeah, and he played for Kansas City for a while too. After he left, I think he left us, went for Kansas City for a few years, and I think he retired with us in a 1-year deal.
I think he went to Dallas for a hot minute too. I think he was. He went to Dallas and came back. I think that's what happened. He went to Dallas and came back to us for a 1-year deal or something like that. Yeah. So, but I mean, it's really interesting seeing some of our players already. Do you guys have any, like, I was talking to some Dolphin fans earlier today. Do you guys have issues with any of the numbers that they picked or they assigned them at all?
Well,
I think Kader Kohu is going to look great in number 4.
He's wearing. I thought he was wearing 24.
No, he changed his number to number 4.
Yeah, they reassigned him number 4.
The one
right at the height of all the Dalvin Cook talk.
I'm an old school guy, man. I like my receivers with 80 numbers in the 80s.
Yeah,
and my D linemen with numbers in the 90s. I hate all this number 10 as a defensive end shit like that.
My high school number as a wide receiver / tight end in high school was 89. And I in fact, I have a custom Dolphins jersey that my wife bought for me, surprisingly, has my high school number on it, right? So I like the 80s and the 89s and whatnot in wide receivers, to be honest. I was surprised to see Berrios took 0. He has 0. I couldn't believe that. So,
yeah, I wore, my designated was usually 82, but I wore 80, 88, 89, and 33 a couple times.
33, that's an interesting number.
Number 35 and number 43, man. Those my numbers.
You're on mute, Shake.
You gotta realize a lot of these franchises are old, so they've been retiring too many numbers, so they need more numbers. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that's so funny.
Am I correct in saying that the Dallas Cowboys have not retired a single number?
Yeah, you're right.
Wait. Didn't they retire Emmitt Smith's number?
I would have thought that, but
pretty soon the Lakers are gonna start handing out letters for jerseys.
Funny.
Well, the people numbers they retire.
That's true. Lakers are gonna win it all. I don't care.
What's your jersey number? B.
I'm B1. just kidding.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was kind of interesting. I'm really excited actually to see what we do in camp and what we do with some of these players. I know I'm really kind of on the Aubrey Miller bandwagon right now. So I'm going to do whatever I can to support him, but I'm interested to see what other players might sneak into this, this 53-man roster when it comes to being all said and done. I think Aubrey Miller has a good chance. Do you guys think any of the other undrafted rookies may have a chance?
I've only looked over the list like once or twice, so I'm not 100% familiar with everyone who they've signed yet. I haven't studied the list yet. But I agree.
I'd have to look at Blackman. I haven't looked at any Blackman's highlights to see if he possibly could bump out Skyler, but or Mike White. I mean, I doubt he'd bump out Mike White, but
I don't think Blackman's going to be able to compete. And I'm basing that on what I saw of him at Florida State. Florida State, he was. I mean, I felt sorry for the kid. They obliterated that kid. He took a beating.
Blackman. He looks like he has like a big arm. The one highlight I see, he throws like a big bomb, but
he can throw deep. He can throw deep for sure. And he's a pretty decent athlete. I mean, he's not super fast, but he's a pocket passer from what I remember. He was really skinny back at Florida State. He was really thin, but he always had that big, deep arm. But I don't know too much about him, honestly, other than that. I'm a UM guy. I enjoyed, dividing this guy up and slowly. I remember we beat the shit out of him every time we played him. So
I'm kind of excited to see, and I know Color thinks this is not a football name, but I'm kind of excited to see Ezekiel Vandenberg. Vandenberg, the linebacker out of Illinois State. I've
Not
watched the
only is it
highlight
not a
rate.
football name, but it's a faux football name. It's one of those ones that sounds like one, but it's really not.
Okay. Let me give the guy the proper respect. But he's from out of Illinois State, and I've watched this highlight reel. The guy looks like a mean player. So I mean, I want to see what he does. There's also the guy out of USC, the defensive lineman, Brandon Pili, Pili, Pili.
Oh, Pili, yeah, that guy. Yeah.
I want to see what he does. I mean, there's some interesting names on here. Michael,
I'm rooting. There's a guy from our neighborhood who I'm rooting for, who grew up down here, Randy Charlton. He was originally at UCF and got in a little bit of trouble there.
Okay. The edge player? He's the edge player. He went to Mississippi State? Okay.
Yeah, he's from me and Mr. Park's neighborhood down here. So down in South Florida, South Dade. So we're rooting for him just like last year we rooted for number 56, who came from Tennessee. He didn't stick around. And we had Sheldrick Redwine in camp last year too, another guy from down here. But none of them lasted with the team. So we're hoping Randy Charlton will stick. Oh, and then there's another guy. Sorry, I forgot. There's one more guy who I got to give a big shout out to. Me and his dad went to school together. DJ Scaife, a longtime guard for University of Miami. He was signed by the Dolphins. 6'3", 320-pound guard. We're really hoping that he finds a spot. So big up, DJ, his dad, all Richmond Heights.
So we also signed former Miami Dolphin legacy Michael Turk, which is the nephew of former Dolphins punter Matt Turk.
Yep, he wore the number 1.
Yeah, so he's a punter. So I'm interested to see what that means for the guy that we just signed. You know what I mean? I want to see what happens there. I'm also surprised, and this is a subject for Colors primarily because he's on board with me, that I think we're missing a certain type of receiver in this offense.
Did you just pluralize my last name?
No, I said Color. Why?
So do we hold on? So we got a punter in UDFA.
Yeah, we got a Matt Turk's nephew, Michael Turk.
Oh,
I was gonna. You said Colors, Ollie. And I was gonna
I see what you mean. I
was gonna make it out like that was the one peeve of Color. Like you can't pluralize my name.
Yeah. Well, your take is that you're not so high on Jalen Waddle. I get that, right? I understand why. It surprised me how many wide receivers we actually brought in.
Yeah,
that surprised me. There's like 2 or 3 of them undrafted. We signed. We brought a couple receivers in as like camp body. Like what was it? Swain, and there was another receiver we signed again. You know what I mean? We got one in the draft. It surprises me. It's like if we have Jalen Waddle, we have Tyreek Hill, we have Ezekiel Elliott, we drafted the guy. Why do we have to bring in more receivers? You know what I mean?
Because the fact of it is the fact of it is, and the fact of it is, you don't know what the fact of it is going to be next year. You don't know if that's going to get better. You don't know if that's going to be fixed. You don't know if there's something underlying as to why somebody drops 3 footballs in one game like that.
Yeah. See, for me,
it's not a matter of whether they think Waddle can fix that. It's a matter of what if he doesn't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But the one thing about that is too, you got to realize 2 things. Number 1, you need 90 men for camp, and number 2, they want to have, usually when they get all those UDFAs, because they want a full rookie minicamp, and with only 4 rookies that they drafted, they needed some more bodies for that
Right,
rookie.
of course, you're going to get tummy aches throughout camp, and guys are going to have to sit out for the day, and you're going to have somebody catch the football. You know,
And you know what? And I think that's why they got a quarterback, and that's why they got a punter, so they could kick return, and they needed a quarterback to, you know what I'm saying, when
Yeah,
rookie
I mean,
minicamp came around.
here's the other thing to look at it too. If you break down our offense, what's the one thing missing from our offense that really could have helped the running game, but also helped the intermediate game as well? It's the 0 to 10 yards offense when it came to the passing game was minimal. We were dropping balls left to right. Gesicki couldn't make a short 10-yard pass catch if his life depended. Everything that he caught that he scored on was beyond the 10 yards. You understand what I'm saying? So if you look at Detroit Lions, for example, and I'm going to use them as an example because this is where I started noticing it a lot more. The one thing that made their offense click, and they were the fourth scoring offense in the league, right? One of the top best when it came to scoring, is they had a possession receiver that they could go to in those short yardage. They were just dumping it to Amon St. Brown all day long between
and
0
don't forget,
to 10
this
yards.
was after giving up TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings.
Yeah. So my thing is that if you don't have that in your offense, you only have from 10 yards or more, the intermediate routes or the deep routes as weapons, it makes it easier on the defense. You need to add more weapons. That's why I can see why we got A-Chain, and also we're considering bringing Delvin Cook, because those guys can add receiving in the short yardage of things, out of the backfield, or even go motion into the slots. I can see that happening. Go ahead, Kari. I know you want to add, provide, your point of view.
No. I didn't have much to add here other than guy like Barrios. I think we are looking for that kind of slot guy that we've been missing. The Devon Best, he's a example of a free agent who made it. Was a camp body who made it all the way through the long and arduous path into meaningful playing time. So we've had guys come from that far down and make an impact on the team. Cameron Wake, so you hope that some of these guys could earn their way onto the roster that same way. But yeah, I mean, that is one glaring. Now, is it that we don't have the guy, or that our quarterback doesn't necessarily know how to make his reads and come back down to his outlet in that way?
Gary, since you brought up the quarterback, I actually just thought of something else maybe we hadn't thought of. Or I should say, I was just reminded of another one of the peeves that we all had last year watching our team. When our backups were in.
Yeah.
It was either, this guy went down early for injury, so this guy comes in who did not work with the first team all week. Right? And then it was, the playoff game of, it's like, this first time the entire season that Skyler's working with the first team, or whatever we had, that we all assumed, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, the fourth quarterback in camp.
Yep.
That allows Skyler Mike White and Skyler to work intricately with the first team while Blackman is working with the rest of the guys.
Keep everybody going. So yeah, maybe he has a role carved out for himself there.
That's actually a good point, Color. I'm glad you brought that out. So I could
practice squad.
see that.
I'll make sure that I'm looking out for that if I'm able to attend camp, to see who, if the backups are working more with the first team than, I mean, they kind of were last year in camp. So that's why I didn't really buy into that idea at first, but that doesn't mean they were during the season.
Yeah, this is true. I think it's earlier the discussions in the spaces and on Stephen D's show and another show, they talked about McDaniel and his rookie mistakes, and even like, does he have an ego? Like, they were responding to the whole notion that what Mostert said about him apologizing for not running the ball more, right? And does that mean he has an ego because he really wants Tua to succeed, because that's what everyone thinks that's really what his reason for coming here is to fix Tua. Is it For me, it's more like, you know, I think a big issue or red flag I had with McDaniel for last season was preparation. Why were you not prepared with both of your quarterbacks when your QB1 went down? You know what I mean? Why did you only give one of them 90% of the snaps with the number ones? That doesn't make sense. I think if your number one went down, you have to be prepared for anything, and you should have given equal amount of snaps, or at least maybe a little bit more to one of them, but not such a huge margin. You know what I mean? I think you should have learned from your earlier on mistake right off the get go, and I don't see that they did. That's a red flag to me. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, number one, on the point of the running game, I really find it still. There might be one thing I'm missing, and I have to look it up. Maybe if you're quick enough to do it, Ali, you could. But unless our overall plays per game went down drastically this year from last year, we passed the ball less this year than we did in Flores's last year per game.
Mm-hmm.
So this notion that he had to apologize for for getting away from the run or not favoring the run. We ran. I mean, I don't know if I didn't look at the runs per game compared to last year, but our passing was down per game.
All right, so I have the numbers, color. I'm that fast. So Miami in 2022 ran about 59.9 plays per game in 2022. In 2021, we averaged 64.5 plays per game.
Okay, so overall, not very many more. 6 more plays per game?
Yeah.
Roughly?
It dropped 6 plays, essentially.
Right. So that would explain 3 of the passes per game and 3 of the runs per game on average, you'd think, right?
Yeah.
So let's see what the runs per, because I didn't look up runs per game from last year to this year. I do know last year's passing was like 36.4 per game or something like that. And this year it was like 34. We dropped just a smidge, or it stayed the same. Suffice it to say, it didn't go up to 40 like Jaceki claimed it was going to.
I'm trying to see what I can find out. One moment here, color.
Which I thought was laughable. You know, like we got the best wide receiver tandem in the league and the best quarterback in the league, but somehow we can't pass the ball as many times per game as we did under Flores.
Mm-hmm.
I think under Flores, we had more of a quick strike offense, shorter passes generally. And with McDaniel, you know, he was constantly pushing Tua to stretch the field, you know, to take the big shots. So that may account for the downtick, even though it appeared that the passing game was more potent, you know.
Right.
I don't actually have it, color. I'm looking.
I think I ended up having to add it up myself with the passes per game.
In 2021, it says Miami. Let me see. Looks rushing attempts per game was about 26.
In 2021?
In 2021.
Okay.
I'm looking to see what I can find about 2022. Just bear with me. Here we go. And 23. So it dropped 3 plays exactly, like that average we were talking about. 3 runs.
Exactly what I thought. Right.
It was 3 exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say, but did he really get away from the run, or did he get away from the run situationally? That's really what he would, you know, maybe he would never go that detailed in his apology, you know what I mean? But that's really what he should have been apologizing for, is situationally choosing to pass instead of run the ball. I mean, I could argue there was a couple times where he chose to run instead of pass that I thought was odd. You know what I mean? But again, First year rookie mistakes. I don't know why anybody thought we were going to win a Super Bowl last year.
For me, the biggest thing, it wasn't so much getting away from the run game, it was the transition of when to run and when
That's what
to
I mean,
pass.
situationally. Like,
Yeah,
when the snow starts to fall in Buffalo, you don't keep the ball in Tua's hands.
I understand, but like, for example, like there were times during the game where Tua's passing and the ball's rolling down the hill, no problem. We're about to score. You can't stop Tua's passing, and all of a sudden he halts the brakes and slams on the brakes on everything and decides to run the ball, and it just messes up the whole drive. Those are the issues that I had with him. He needs to fix those problems. It wasn't the fact that we didn't run or we didn't pass when we should have. In situations like that, and we made dumb mistakes where we wasted timeouts on 3rd and 4th down, running the same play over again. I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, that's the particular play series of plays I'm referring to in particular about taking the ball out of Tua's hands. It's like, I get that you want to run there, but come on, guys. Okay, even if you're going to take the ball, and then on top of that, you take the ball out of Tua's hands, who was cooking on that drive, and you only needed 2 yards. And you knew you were going to go for it because you called timeout after 2nd down and you ran in 2 plays, and they were both the same exact off tackle run that Chase Edmond ran into the ass of our offensive lineman on. Like, even if you're going to run 2 running plays, you can't. You got nothing more innovative than that. I mean, I just don't I didn't understand the move. And especially when at that point of the season, there's still this air of, who is Tua and what do they think and this and that and the other. And you're taking the ball out of his hands while he's cooking. It didn't make sense to me. Didn't make sense for Tua's image either. It doubly didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, for me, the book is still out on McDaniels. I'm not ready to make any definitive conclusion about whether he's a good coach, bad coach, or whatever. I got a sense of his tendencies, right? And that he wants to be aggressive and that he wants to attack where he perceives the defense to be weak. I think he's a yin and yang guy in that sense. When they're giving us a stop to run, that's when he passes, right? And vice versa. But all the things you just pointed out make me pause from making any definitive conclusion about whether he's a good coach or a bad coach yet. So I'm looking, this year, hopefully we move closer to some, definitive picture of who McDaniels is. And that's one of the most frustrating things I hear from some of those other shows. There's all this, extra confidence and bravado about what McDaniel will and won't do, and that shit drives me crazy, man. So
I completely understand. I just want to land with this, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to do the rundown, and we'll get to final thoughts here. So I want to say it maybe there's an advantage to bringing a Vic Fangio in when it comes to McDaniel and his call playing. Because now he has someone he can lean on and be like, hey, I'm seeing that they're doing this. Can you tell me where the weaknesses are? Maybe Vic Fangio will be able to provide that information where Boyer couldn't. And
sure,
the
at
other
least
thing
in the film room.
Yeah, and then the other part is, where do you want Vic Fangio? Do you want him on the sideline or you want him in the booth?
Wherever he wants to be.
Vic Fangio already said he likes to be in the booth.
If he wants to be in the booth, rock and roll. I'd rather him be there because he can see everything all at once.
He's got the
rather than just one point of view. So I definitely agree with that. Let's do the lowdown color. And then we'll get to final thoughts here because we're on the 2-hour mark.
The lowdown is that Kahari's got all the goods.
That is absolutely right. Kahari definitely has the goods. While you're checking out Kahari's goods, no pun intended, make sure you hit the like button, turn on notifications, tell your friends, tell your kids, tell your wife, come check out the show. We really appreciate it. While you're waiting, we have a whole bunch of different other content you can check out. El Capitans, the Finn's Tailgate Show, Cup of Coffee with Color, We got Broken Takes with myself, and we're getting a morning show that I promise you, it's coming. It's coming. It's just we're getting some stuff done for it. We got DTA, he's on furlough right now. We got Lewis, who's supposed to be going Tuesday nights, but you can find him in the spaces and out here on the drive time with Shake Money. And Shake Money, you're still doing Saturdays, right? You still got that going on as well? Is that right?
Yeah, until the preseason.
That's right. So you got Saturdays, so make sure you hit like and subscribe. We appreciate any donations you guys provide. We wouldn't be here without you. We accept Cash App, Venmo, super stickers, or super chats. We really appreciate it. We also have memberships. You can, if you like the content and you want to get notified a little bit quicker and also get cool emojis and other private content, check out our memberships. We have Familia, Amigos, and MVP. So some cool stuff that you get from El Capitan and whatnot. So definitely check that out. Also, while you're looking at the description, there's some links down there, and shout out to our affiliates.
New seasons, new gear. Show the world what it means to be a fan in 100% authentic gear. Fanatics, officially licensed everything.
Yeah, so check out Fanatics if you ever wonder where I get all my hats and my draft hat collection that I have. I have about.
I might unmute myself and do that in stereo one day. What do y'all think?
That would be pretty cool, Color. Not gonna lie. But no, if you are looking for any Miami Dolphins gear, we definitely recommend you use Fanatics. They got some split payment options and stuff. Definitely use the link because it helps out the channel. But they have all different sales going all the time. You can get officially a licensed gear. You can get signed gear from them, helmets, jerseys, hats. I have a huge collection of draft official hats for draft day. I buy one every year for the Miami Dolphins. I have like 8 of them for the last 8 drafts. So that's where I get all my hats. So definitely check them out. With that being said, also check out Doobie Energy Drink. Doobie Energy Drink, this is a brand. I don't really recommend energy drinks, but if I were to recommend one, Doobie would be it. Doobie actually, no, I'm serious. A lot of the other energy drink brand names out there have a lot more of the sugars and byproducts that you don't necessarily want to drink, or they may give you like the jitters or the crashing that you normally would get. Doobie has supplements that actually don't have that stuff. They have certain vitamins and essentials that benefit your brain and help you with focusing. The stuff that they use is all natural, as well as the stuff that's good for you, that provides some of the benefits of providing energy and whatnot. So definitely check out Doobie's energy drink supplements. They have quite a bit of stuff over there. While you're doing that, also check out Backroom Collections. They have some cool artwork. I have a piece that I've ordered that should be coming soon. That's going to be in my man cave, and I will be presenting to that soon. So definitely keep an eye out for that. That also being said, also if you'd like to save on checkout, you can use code TFTG at checkout. So shout out to all of our affiliates, Doobie, Fanatics, Backroom Collection. We appreciate you. With that also being said, check out our merch store. We got t-shirts, hats, tumblers, wine cups, and all different stuff that you can get for both you, your wife, your kids, for Father's Day or Mother's Day. Definitely check out the stuff we have. T-shirts, hats. The hats come in all different colors and two-tone and whatnot. If you're looking for tailgating gear, get this flag. It is the coolest thing. If you ever come to the tailgate, go to the yellow parking lot across from East 32. I'll be there. You'll see this high flying in the sky this coming up season. So definitely check that out. We got beanie hats, flip-flops for the
birdie, Ali,
Yeah.
I heard from a little birdie that all that stuff, the variety is about to increase exponentially as well.
Yes, Stay tuned. Color. Shh, don't give out secrets, Color.
Oh, that was just a little one.
The National League of Commies are listening. Anyway, so definitely check out the stuff. We really appreciate it. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Check out our other content. But let's get back to our special guest, Kahari. What are your final thoughts, man? Tell us, do you have any crazy broken takes for this coming up year? Or maybe it's way too early mock draft call out that you could do? Maybe a position that you think we're going to draft first next year.
Yeah, if you've never heard my thoughts on Broken Takes, Kahari, I love this show so much, and I will always do it with Ali because it's Broken Takes. So when the haters come at you and they're like, I can't believe you said that, you'd be like, bro, the title literally says Broken Takes. So that's why I love it here, man. So you can say anything you want, man.
I'll give you a hot one. But first, man, let me just thank you guys, the whole Finn's Tailgate gang, for inviting me on for the topic discussion tonight. It was a lot of fun. And, hopefully we see a world where HBCUs get a better shake when it comes to exposure to the NFL, But, man, honestly, in terms of final thoughts on our beloved Finns, man, like I said, I tend to be grumpy old Mr. Negative, Mr. Cynical, and nothing has happened thus far this offseason that's going to change my mind. I was a lot more excited last offseason than I am this one. I heard Pete earlier, and I wanted to just, roll with Pete's take here. I see the whole thing falling apart this season, man. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. I see the wheels falling off the damn wagon. I don't know how. It's a matter of how bad it will get when it comes to mine.
Kahari, first appearance coming in with a Pete's take, man. You can't get no more broken than that, bro.
Kahari, what? Let me ask you this: will it fall apart by design?
Exactly. That is the question. That is the question. I'm not smart enough to tell you one way or the other, man. But if it is, man, that just will piss me off even more if it is by design. Because, man, how much longer do you want us to spend in the desert before you give us a winner? I mean, we deserve a real legitimate team, not all of these mirrors and mirages that you're selling us, man. And
yeah, I mean, at least tell us ahead of time so we can go on sabbatical or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man. And again, part of me wants to be so wrong about feeling this way because I got so many other people in my family, friends who are on the other side of things. They believe Tua is the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. And man, all I do is fight with them all day long about this stuff.
Swiss is pretty good, man.
Exactly. A lot of holes in it, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, man, that's as broken as I can get, man. So, peace out to everyone, man. Peace, shake, color.
Well, before you go, I want to personally thank you for coming by to Broken Takes, man. I really, really enjoyed the conversation with you, and look forward to many more in the future, bro. I really, again, I do appreciate it so much, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, no doubt, man. No doubt.
And by the way, hit me up on Twitter, man. I gotta get you in the blender before the season 1 ends.
Okay, no doubt, man. You let me know when, man.
All right, brother.
Yeah, Kari, we really appreciate you, man. You're invited to be on the show anytime you want, bro. Just let us know.
Be safe.
Cool. Peace, guys.
All right, man. Be safe.
All right. So Kahari was here. What a great special guest. I love and it was really good conversation.
That was the hottest show yet, man, in my opinion, bro. Well, is gonna be for those of you watching during the day today.
Definitely. So Shake Money, man, what do you have for us? Any final takes? Any crazy takes?
No. I'm gonna be doing. Hopefully, I'm looking for my guest couldn't make it this Thursday, so I'm gonna be. Hopefully, I could. If not, I have a best of I could do. But for the most part, yeah, man. Check me out in the blender, Larry K. Tomorrow, and of course here on Finn's Tailgate Friday and Saturday. So pretty much nothing, man. And once again, as always, thank you, man, for having me on again. Peace out.
Definitely.
Hey, as always, again, Shake, you know how I feel, bro. Thank you so much for the help and the support you're bringing us, bro, right now. You don't realize how much it is important to me, man, in particular, and love talking to you always, man.
Same here.
All right, bro. Love you, Shake. All right.
Same here. Peace.
All right. So, Color, we're down to just you and I. What do you think? Any final thoughts you want to give?
There are no final thoughts. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, man. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, bro. I hate to use so many cliches all the times, but we're running out of them. We have to like repeat all of them over again. At the end of the day, it's the evening, and it's going to be what it's going to be, because in the long run, it's the short run. You know. So fins up, man.
All right, fins up, man.
Thanks,
Love
Ali.
you. No problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap. This was Broken Takes. We had our special guest, Kahari. I loved it. I love the conversations, bringing some real talk to some issues that are going on, and what we can expect from our team, our draft picks, and what our future holds. We talked a lot today. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to be doing way too early mock draft. I'll give you a little sneak peek, and this is a little tidbit before I go. In 2024, the Miami Dolphins draft Christian Wilkins' replacement. That's all I'm going to tell you. Fins up. I'm out.